On the quiet morning of August 11th, 2014, the world stopped when authorities in Marin County confirmed a discovery that shattered millions. Inside his home in Tiburon, around midday, Robin Williams was found unresponsive, the official report describing a scene that felt impossible to accept. A man who had spent 40 years making the world laugh had succumbed to a silent and consuming darkness. The news broke within minutes, spreading across television screens, radios, and phones in a wave of disbelief. The question that echoed everywhere was simple yet haunting. How could a man who brought joy to so many live in such unbearable pain himself? Long before he became an icon, his story began on July 21st, 1951, in Chicago, a city whose cold winds seemed to shape the early stillness of a boy who would later become a storm of improvisational brilliance. His father was a stern, practical man who worked as an executive in the auto industry. His mother was a former model with a spark of humor and elegance, known for her warmth. Robin spent much of his childhood feeling suspended between their worlds. Some reports suggest that he often tried to make his mother laugh just to keep her attention a little longer. As if humor was the only language that could truly connect them, the family moved frequently, drifting from Illinois to Michigan and eventually settling in the affluent hills of Marin County, California, in the early 1960s. Despite the privilege around him, Robin struggled with loneliness. He spent hours alone in the large house, creating imaginary characters and entire worlds to cope with the isolation. Teachers noticed that beneath his politeness, there was a restless energy, an uncontrollable imagination searching for a stage. By the time he reached high school around 1967, he discovered theater, and for the first time, his internal chaos found purpose. Acting became both escape and identity. After graduating in 1969, he attended Claremont Men's College, but left when he realized he could not suppress the pull of performance. He enrolled at the College of Marin, immersing himself in drama classes where his talent quickly became undeniable. It was there, around 1973, that he earned the scholarship to the prestigious Juilliard School in New York City. The transition from suburban California to the intense artistic pressure of Juilliard tested him deeply. Yet it was during those years that his unique improvisational style emerged. Teachers reportedly saw him as a raw force of nature, unpredictable and electrifying, incapable of being confined by classical techniques. Some believed he was too unconventional for the school's rigid mold. By 1976. He had left Juilliard without completing the program, a decision that might have broken a weaker spirit. But Robin saw an opportunity waiting outside those walls. He returned to California, performing stand-up in small, smoky clubs where his manic style shocked audiences. He seemed to possess 1,000 voices, shifting personas in seconds, as if channeling a universe of characters at will. His performances blurred the line between comedy and emotional exorcism. Some comedians at the time whispered that he was a genius and a danger to himself because he pushed his mind to places others were afraid to explore. His breakthrough arrived in 1978 when television executives cast him in a small role as an alien named Mork in a Happy Days episode. The character was so overwhelmingly popular that he earned his own show, Mork and Mindy, which premiered in 1978 and made him a household name almost overnight. The sudden fame came with a dual reality. On camera, he became the unstoppable comet of American comedy. Off camera, he began spiraling into the temptations that surrounded Hollywood during that era. The late 1970s brought heavy drug use into his circle, and insiders later revealed that Robin was swept into the nightlife of cocaine and fast living. The intensity of his public persona masked the chaos. Building behind the scenes as the show soared through the early 1980s, so did his struggles. The pressure to maintain his improvisational brilliance placed a weight on him that no one could fully see. His mind was a furnace that never cooled, and the fame that elevated him began consuming him. The tragic death of his friend John Belushi on March 5, 1982, reportedly after a night that Robin had been present earlier in, shook him to his core. It marked the moment he confronted the consequences of his lifestyle. Some close to him later said this was the turning point where he realized that the path he was on could easily end in the same darkness. Yet in the shadow of crisis, he evolved. By 1987, after years of rebuilding his career through film, he transformed from a television phenomenon into a respected actor with his unforgettable performance in Good Morning, Vietnam.
Good morning, Vietnam!
He was called. Critics praised the balance of humor and raw emotion, sensing that he wasn't just acting. He was channeling something personal, something painful, something only he understood. This chapter of his life glimmered with triumph. But beneath every success, there remained the silent storm he carried from childhood. A storm that would shape his relationships, his career, and eventually his fate. As the late 1980s unfolded, Robin Williams entered a period where his talent began to stretch far beyond comedy. After the acclaim of Good Morning, Vietnam in 1987, he pursued roles that allowed him to explore the emotional depths he had long kept hidden. In 1989, he starred in Dead Poets Society, a film that captured the quiet rebellion of the human spirit. Audiences were mesmerized by his ability to portray vulnerability wrapped in warmth. Yet behind the camera, his personal life was shifting. His marriage to Valerie Velarde, which began in 1978, struggled under the weight of fame, constant travel, and the emotional distance created by his internal battles. By 1988, their separation was underway, and the divorce was finalized in 1988. Although public attention was more focused on his rising career than on the pain unfolding in his home in 1989. Robin married Marcia Garces, who had previously worked as a nanny for his son. Their bond grew during a period when he was battling the remnants of addiction and the pressure of sudden success. Some reports suggest that Marcia became one of the stabilizing forces in his life, helping him navigate the unpredictable demands of Hollywood. Together they welcomed 2 children, adding moments of joy and grounding to a life that often drifted into emotional extremes. The early 1990s marked some of his most remarkable years. In 1991, he starred in The Fisher King, a film that echoed his own struggles with inner turmoil and the search for redemption. Later that same year, he brought a magical intensity to the role of Peter Banning in Hook, capturing the hearts of a younger generation. But it was in 1993, with Mrs. Doubtfire, that he became a global phenomenon once again. The film was not just a comedic masterpiece. It resonated deeply with audiences because of the tenderness he brought to a father trying to hold his family together. This role carried its own painful mirror. Robin's marriage to Marcia was beginning to show cracks, a slow and steady unraveling beneath the surface of public adoration. Around 1996, during the filming of The Birdcage, Robin demonstrated a new kind of discipline. He avoided improvising during takes and instead focused on subtle emotional control. Some insiders later said this was the period when he was trying to prove to himself that he could contain the chaos inside him without relying on the explosive energy that had defined his early career. Yet even as he matured professionally, he faced renewed personal challenges. His return to alcohol in 2003 marked the beginning of another private struggle. By his own account, it started with a single drink in a hotel bar, a moment of vulnerability that reopened a door he had kept shut for nearly 20 years. In 2004, he starred in films like The Final Cut and House of D, exploring darker, more introspective roles. These performances hinted at the emotional weight he was carrying. Some believed that Robin used acting as a form of therapy, slipping into characters that allowed him to express the pain he could not share in real life. The growing tension in his marriage culminated in a separation in 2008, followed by a divorce in 2010. This marked yet another period of emotional upheaval. Even as he continued to produce remarkable work in 2009, Robin experienced a health scare that drew public attention. He was hospitalized for heart issues and underwent surgery on March 13, 2009, to replace an aortic valve. Although he recovered, the experience left a deeper psychological imprint than many realized. Coming face to face with mortality awakened fears he had long tried to bury beneath humor. Friends noticed a shift in him after the surgery. He became more introspective, quieter in private moments, and more vulnerable to the shadows that had always lingered at the edges of his life. Despite the challenges, he continued working tirelessly. His role in Good Will Hunting in 1997 earned him an Academy Award, cementing his place as one of the greatest performers of his generation. But the pressure to maintain that level of excellence weighed heavily on him in the years that followed. Throughout the early 2000s and into the 2010s, he battled fluctuating mental health, addiction triggers, and an inner sense of fading creative energy. Some reports suggest that he feared losing the sharpness that had once made him unstoppable. By 2011. He entered his third marriage with Susan Schneider, a union built on tenderness and support. Yet even with love surrounding him, Robin struggled to understand the changes happening within his own mind and body. Subtle symptoms began appearing, affecting his memory, mobility, and emotional stability. At first, doctors believed it was depression, then possibly Parkinson's disease. The uncertainty left him terrified and confused. This period marked the slow descent into a mystery that even he could not decipher. As he continued to work, including his final television project, The Crazy One, in 2013, the shadows deepened around him. The world still saw the brilliant performer, but behind closed doors, he was confronting a reality that felt increasingly unfamiliar and frightening. The storm that had followed Robin Williams from childhood was now gathering into something far darker, something neither he nor those around him could fully understand. By the beginning of 2014, Robin Williams was standing at the edge of a life that had become painfully divided. On one side was the legendary performer adored by millions, still capable of lighting up a room with a single expression. On the other hand was a man quietly unraveling, fighting symptoms no one could accurately diagnose. His struggles intensified during the filming of Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, which wrapped production in early 2014. Crew members later shared that Robin seemed unusually exhausted, sometimes forgetting lines he would once have mastered instantly. Moments of confusion would wash over him without warning. He hid it with jokes, but behind those brief sparks of laughter was a growing fear that his greatest gift was slipping through his fingers. In May 2014, Robin was officially diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a revelation that shook him deeply. What he did not know was that this diagnosis was incomplete. Something else was attacking his brain, something far more devastating. Some reports describe this period as one marked by rising paranoia, anxiety, and an overwhelming sense of cognitive decline. He began struggling with simple tasks, and his once razor-sharp improvisational instincts became cloudy. Friends later recalled that he felt trapped inside a mind that was betraying him, a terrifying experience for someone whose identity had always been tied to quick thinking and creative brilliance. The cancellation of his television series, The Crazy Ones, in May 2014, added a second blow. The show had been his attempt to re-establish stability in his career after years of uncertainty. When it ended, he reportedly took it as a personal failure, believing that he had disappointed those who trusted him. Financial pressures added to the burden. Though he was still wealthy compared to most people, multiple divorces, expensive responsibilities, and a changing industry landscape all contributed to growing stress. Behind the scenes, he sold his Napa, Valley Home in 2014, a quiet indication that he was restructuring his life in ways few understood. What no one realized at the time was that Robin was battling Lewy body disease, an aggressive and little-known neurological condition that would only be confirmed after his death. It had been affecting his brain for months, maybe even years. It caused hallucinations, memory issues, and severe mood swings. It blurred reality and twisted perception. Those closest to him sensed something was wrong, but could not identify it. For Robin, this invisible enemy was far more frightening than addiction, fame, or public scrutiny. It was a loss of self-doubt. By July 2014, his world had become smaller. He withdrew into quieter routines at his home in Tiburon, trying to make sense of the changes happening inside him. He still attempted to maintain optimism around his wife, still tried to fight the shadows through exercise, routines, and small rituals of control. But his body and mind continued to resist him. Some nights, he reportedly paced through the house, unable to calm his thoughts. Other nights he woke from sleep, overwhelmed by fear, unable to explain the sensation. Friends who visited him around this time described him as gentle, kind, and heartbreakingly tired. The man who once unleashed comedic storms now struggled to maintain the most basic emotional balance. His wife later shared that he kept saying he wanted to reboot his brain, as if searching for a switch that no longer existed. He had always battled depression and anxiety, but this was different. It was neurological, biological, and devastating. In the final days leading up to August 11, 2014, Robin attempted to stay active, biking through the neighborhood and engaging in light conversations with neighbors. Outwardly, nothing seemed alarming. Inwardly, he was enduring the full psychological weight of confusion, deterioration, and the fear of losing the ability to be himself. He researched his symptoms obsessively, trying to understand what was happening. His journals from this period revealed a man who felt lost in his own mind. The tragedy that followed became one of the most painful moments in modern culture. On the morning of August 11, 2014, Robin Williams ended his life. He left behind a world that adored him, a family that cherished him, and a legacy that would never be forgotten. Only after his passing did autopsy results reveal the truth. His brain had been consumed by Lewy body disease, one of the most severe cases doctors had ever seen. The condition explained the paranoia, the sleeplessness, the confusion, and the emotional spiral that had unfolded in his final year. The world mourned him with an intensity rarely seen. Fans gathered outside landmarks, leaving flowers, letters, and symbols of the joy he had given them. Even those who had never met him felt the loss in a deeply personal way. Robin's death forced a global conversation about mental health, neurological illness, and the hidden battles that even the brightest souls endure. His legacy remains carved into film history. A man who brought light to millions while fighting shadows no one could see. A performer who offered humor as healing and emotion as truth. A soul who lived fiercely, loved deeply, and left behind a mystery that still resonates years later. Though his life ended in tragedy, the impact of his art continues to ripple across generations, reminding the world that behind every smile lies a story, behind every performance lies a heart, and behind every legend lies a human being searching for peace. In the days and weeks following August 11, 2014, the world tried to piece together the fragments of a life that had seemed almost too luminous to break. Fans, journalists, colleagues, and experts all searched for answers, replaying his interviews, revisiting his performances, and combing through the final years of his life for clues. Yet the truth remained painfully simple. Robin Williams had been fighting a silent battle that even he could not fully name. As the investigation continued, details emerged that added layers of tragedy to an already heartbreaking story. When the autopsy confirmed Lewy body disease, The revelation reframed everything he had endured. The cognitive decline, the memory lapses, the anxiety attacks, the insomnia, the haunting sense of losing control of his own mind. Those closest to him were forced to grapple with a truth that felt both devastating and clarifying. He was not just battling depression. He was fighting a neurological condition that stripped away identity, confidence, and even reality itself. Doctors later explained that his case was among the worst ever recorded, with the disease attacking nearly every region of his brain. This made his final performances, including his work on The Crazy Ones in 2013, all the more astonishing. He had been acting through a storm of symptoms that would have left most people unable to work at all. His tributes poured in. Throughout August 2014, the world remembered him not only for his brilliance, but for his humanity. Clips of his comedy specials resurfaced. Scenes from Dead Poets Society, Good Will Hunting, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Aladdin flooded social media. His words about kindness, empathy, and the fragility of life took on new meaning. Fans shared memories of meeting him, always describing him as gentle, generous, and present. Even in the times when he was suffering privately, he never lost the instinct to make others feel valued. The contrast between his public warmth and private torment intensified the sense of loss. His wife, Susan, spent the months that followed trying to bring clarity to his final year. In November 2014, she spoke publicly about the symptoms he had faced, detailing the confusion, panic, and the terrifying neurological shifts that he never understood. Her insight provided a vital key to the mystery of his decline. The world realized that Robin had been enduring a form of psychological imprisonment, fighting an unseen enemy that distorted his sense of self. This revelation reshaped the conversation around him, shifting focus from speculation to compassion. Robin's children also stepped forward during 2015, speaking with love about the father who had been their anchor. They shared memories of his tenderness, his goofy humor at home, his support, and the way he always put their needs before his own. Yet they also acknowledged the weight he carried. For decades, Robin had been the emotional lighthouse for millions, and the pressure to remain a beacon of joy had taken its toll. His children's reflections became a testament to the duality of fame. When the world sees a performer as indestructible, they overlook the human being beneath the spotlight. As the years moved forward, Robin's legacy deepened rather than faded. In 2016, his widow worked with medical experts to release detailed findings on Lewy body disease, hoping to bring awareness to a condition that remained largely misunderstood. Her efforts ignited conversations in the medical community, prompting new research and increased public focus. This part of his legacy quietly changed lives, offering understanding to families experiencing similar hardships and helping patients receive earlier diagnosis. Meanwhile, Robin's work continued to resonate with audiences new and old. Younger generations discovered him through films like Jumanji, Night at the Museum, and Good Will Hunting. His voice roles remained immortalized in animated classics. Every performance carried emotional insight that seemed clearer in retrospect, as if he had always been speaking from a place of profound human experience. Critics began re-examining his career, emphasizing not only his comedic genius, but his remarkable ability to reveal vulnerability through his characters. They noted how his roles often centered on themes of healing, redemption, and the unseen battles of ordinary people. These choices made sense when viewed through the lens of his own struggles.